There we go. Okay. I think we got everything all figured out.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna take a look at the Kotohi official stream as well. And I see, hey, Chaos Modifier, thanks for joining.
Hey everyone. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry for the audio issues. I got them figured out. I lowered Andy just a little bit. Um, Let me know if that works out.
Okay, and it seems there's a bit of a delay on our what's it called on our stream. So yeah, we're just having a few technical issues here. We're just trying to iron out. Hopefully, everything will be smooth once we begin. But if you see anything, go ahead and post a comment in the chat, and we'll go ahead and support that for you. Let's see. Great. Go ahead and we can begin. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stream on my side, so I don't. I'm not going to be able to see any questions. Otherwise, it's going to be repeating my words back to me, and that's going to be really distracting. Matt, do you want to go ahead and follow the comments there?
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, if any comments come up, yeah, feel free to yeah, just go ahead and post comments or questions, and we'll support what we can here. One moment here.
I thought I reduced it as far as I can, but
Mhm.
I don't know. That's something I'll look at next time. Try and reduce the latency as much as I can.
All right.
Well, yeah. So,
Cool.
uh,
Yeah, okay, so yeah, sorry. So basically, to begin over, thank you everyone for joining, all 8 or 9 of you. And what we're going to do here is basically we're talking a little bit about Shinobigami. I'm Andy K. We've got Matt here as well. Uh, I'm here in Japan, so you can't see out my window, but it's pitch black. It's 10 p.m. It's 9 a.m. where Matt is over in Atlanta. And yeah, we're basically what happened was this. We were contacted about 2 days ago by the people from Boken Sha, aka Adventure Planning Service. They're the original publishers of the Japanese version of Shinobigami. And they said, "Hey, have you heard anything about Spiel Essen this year?" And I said, I haven't really been following Spiel. I not as much into board games as I am into RPGs, but I support all my folks that go out there. And they said, "Yeah, it's digital this year." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, hey, can you go ahead and maybe like do something for us, like some like a like a talk show or a presentation or something about Shinobigami? Like, yeah, wait, it's now. So yeah, we basically put some stuff together. Matt had been sitting on these great Shinobigami like backdrops and stuff like that for actual play that you can see kind of spinning around and animating right now. Um, and I think the long term plan was to share these right with the community at some point. Is that
yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Um, and so basically, yeah, what we're doing is yeah, we're gonna post these eventually so that other people can use them if they want to do Shinobigami streaming and the like. Um, we're going to talk about license stuff later, but one thing we do want to do is support everyone who's playing the game. If you're playing at home, of course, we have all the printouts and stuff like that. Well, also people who want to do it live, whether it's privately or through streaming, yeah, we want to have the resources to support you guys there as well. So that's something we're putting together right now. But to roll it back in, yeah. So basically, what we're going to do now is somewhere between an hour and 2 hours of chatting about Shinobigami. Uh, as probably you're aware, everyone who joined, yeah, we're with Kodadama Heavy Industries. That's our little imprint name. This is our third game that we've published after Tenrabancha Zero and Ryutama. We have discussed those others on other places, but since we're actually kind of piggybacking and supporting Bokenshide at Spiel Essen this time, we're going to basically focus this entirely on Shinobigami or related to our company or imprint. So we're not going to probably do too much QA about the other stuff we're working on, or have done, or are still following up on. In the case of Tenra and Ryutama, we're going to focus this mostly on Shinobigami. Um, and yeah, we'll just do some quick introductions and then jump right into it. I'm Andy K. I founded Kotodama as much as it is. It's basically a sole proprietorship, but it's a project of love from way back in the day when I was the only one really doing this sort of thing. Before I found Matt, and we kind of linked together and started doing translations and publishing together. Um, as probably you've heard, so other projects that I've done by myself, and then from Ryutama on, it's been a project with me and Matt. Um, as a like I basically do part-time translation. My full-time job is I'm kind of an IT manager at a IT company, and I work basically in English and Japanese here in Japan, out of Yokohama. Um, and yeah, Japan's been kind of crazy because of COVID, but I'm trying to keep it together as much as I can. And that's me. How about you, Matt? Tell us about yourself.
So, my name is Matt. I'm currently in Atlanta. I'm from Los Angeles. I lived in Japan for several years, which is where I found and fell in love with Japanese role playing games. Um, but, uh, but yeah, probably about like 8 or 9 years ago now. I don't know, ridiculous amount of time in the past. Um, I moved back from Japan into back to LA, trying to figure out what to do. Maybe um, I could do something with these Japanese role playing games that I like so much. At the time, I was a temp worker trying to look for some steady work or something like that. Thought maybe these RPGs could be something. Turns out no, not really. Not like like enough to like support a family, but it was something just on the side. And that's the way it's been for the past since then basically. So since then I've got married. I have a couple of kids, and life is way more complicated than it was when I first thought that translating Ryutama would be a good idea. Uh, but here we are. Yeah, so now I'm in Atlanta, and I am a customs manager at a freight forwarder and customs brokerage. So that keeps me very busy during the day.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, it's a common
basically.
theme: busy day jobs and just enough time at night to be in a constant rush to keep up with our projects at night.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's how it works. And so it looks like what I was able to do is I basically I've got Twitch pulled up on my other screen here, so I can actually see the our wonderful 6 users that are participating with us. That's awesome. There may be more people joining in or dropping. I do have the chat up, so feel free to. I'm not able to post in chat because I'd have to like basically log off and log back into Twitch. I don't want to do that. So um, if you, oh, actually, sorry, there's 6 registered users and a bunch of other people just kind of watching. But two places to ask questions. One, the primary thing, just go ahead and if you're joined our chat, go ahead and post in the stream chat a question. Um, you can, yeah, just ask something. We're going to be very kind of open and free form here. We're not doing a presentation about anything, aggressive here. So it's pretty much going to be like well, drinking beers. I don't have a beer. I've got iced tea, and it's too early for Matt to be drinking. So we're basically it's going to be very laid back as we talk about this stuff. So like if you just have any questions about Shinobigami or us or whatever, feel free to post those into the stream chat. If you don't have a sign in for for Twitch, but you do subscribe to our Discord over at Kotodama Heavy Industries Discord. Feel free to post things in the general, and we'll kind of keep an eye on both of those from time to time, and get back with you. So let's start off with Shinobigami. Da, 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 it's finally freaking out. Oh,
Yay.
yeah. Yes, and I can say that. Yeah, it's only been about half a year since we started shipping these, and basically yeah, I posted in the last update, which was a little bit overdue. Apologies for that. But a lot of the things going on in the background that I've kind of been doing on my side and keeping from Matt, so he doesn't have to freak out and stress because he's doing enough shipping in his day job, is basically the COVID situation has completely upended shipping. It's been rough. Basically, we had a situation to make the as simple as possible. We had things happen like this. Our warehouse, the place that sort of distributes our products primarily, is in Nevada, in America on the West Coast. Um, people in Belgium were reporting getting their books about a week after we shipped them, and they're posting on Twitter, "Oh, I got my book," in Belgian, German, French, etc. And meanwhile, like, cut to like 2.5 months later, three people who live basically 4 hours away by car from the place that was shipping it finally got theirs, like in the U.S. So that's how things have been just kind of crazy. And so we had to kind of stop some of the production and had to kind of focus on basically having to deal with COVID. Honestly, it's been pretty rough. But finally, the book is out, or at least the first book is out. We've got one more that's in production right now, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what's in it. Um, we don't have any like live previews or any text or anything we can show you. It's basically we're putting the last touches on the text and then about to like dump it into a layout that's similar to. It's going to be basically similar to the first book, at least for the commercial version. And then we are going to talk about the limited edition version a little bit. I saw Chaos Modifier had a question about that. So we don't have a preview text, but we can tell you a little bit about what it's going to feature. Because we're still doing things like working out font choices and layout templates and stuff like that, getting them ready to line up, and then we're just going to like dump the text in and then send it to the printers as fast as possible. But yeah, this has been another project where we're like, yes, we're going to be all over it, and then it took a little bit while to get it out. But man, we love this this book, and now it's out in our hands. It's just, yeah, like it kind of feels unreal, honestly. It's been half a year, and people are out there playing it online and in person and all that sort of thing. But and people are talking about it. I'm following Twitter and stuff like that, and people are mentioning it here and there. But it's still kind of blowing me away. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, for so many years, my my main goal really outside of just work was to get Shinobigami out into the hands of everybody. And now that the first book has it, it kind of feel like half of my life's work is done. The other half is gonna be getting book number two, but really, after that, then whatever, my kids can
Yeah,
grow
you
up on
can.
their own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can be like, yeah, it'll be like you can die standing up with your
Hmm.
sword in your hand.
Yeah.
Like what was that hero's name? Benkei.
Yeah.
Benkei, the guy who died where he stood,
Right.
protecting the bridge.
Like
That'll
Austin
be
on
Matt.
Joe. Yeah. Yeah.
I still know Joe. Yeah, die in the middle of production, or at least as soon as like the first person gets their thing on Twitter, Matt's going to become like a Buddhist mummy and just kind of ascend.
um
Little Davis will be carrying him to explain.
but yeah, it just it's out there. It's really exciting. But I can't wait for book two and beyond. Um
Yeah,
because
all the other stuff we got going on. Yeah, so I do want to mention the other stuff that was going on. So I know that at least half the people here are like friends of ours in the Discord, and know what the background is of the game and things like the things we promised in the Kickstarter that we're going to deliver on, stuff like that. Um, but we also, I see a few new names here, and I'm sure that others are watching. We want to kind of talk about the other things that are happening, like that we're also delivering, and how things have changed a little bit. Um, so here's the first book, and I should actually probably like back up a little bit. Like, what is Shinobigami? Because there might be people that are not here for the welcome party and here just like like was maybe even German Spiel people who just kind of wandered in, going like, hey, what is this thing? So yeah, ich habe keine Ahnung, was ich sagen. So basically, what is Shinobigami? Let's have Matt tackle that one.
sure. So it's
What is and how is it different than other RPGs?
yes. So Shinobigami, it's a book of it is a modern ninja battle role playing game. Where every player plays a ninja, and every player is also given a mission, which gives you which explicitly tells you what you should be trying to accomplish during the game. And then you're also given a secret, and the secret can be anything like the player across the table from you is actually your father, or it could be something like uh, the uh, the thing that the scroll that you've been assigned to grab is actually going to resurrect your lover, so make sure that you grab it and keep it from everybody else or something like that, and that's your secret mission. So
Mm.
the secrets have the capability of switching everything up, of changing the narrative, of
Totally overriding the game and
mhm,
pushing it in a new direction. Yeah.
yes, um, and but they could also have like mechanical effects too, if the GM wants them to, if that it but the scenario can be completely different every time, even though the game has this very simple react structure where the players are introduced. You have a main phase where everybody kind of um, uh, interacts with each other, and then one final conflict uh, at the end, the climax scene. And then after that, then the scenario is finished. So it's a nice, tight 4 hour game.
Oh,
But even given that simple structure with the secrets and the missions, um, you're gonna have a different game every time, and so it's really exciting, and all of the mechanics push the players toward each other. Maybe not necessarily against each other, but there's always going to be some sort of tension or conflict. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it just makes for a really exciting game every time.
Yeah, the scenario, the games sort of run themselves too. Like there is a GM, and the GM's there to sort of provide balance and kind of set up the world and things like that, and provide NPCs as needed, make sure everything is kind of running by the rules. They're actually more of a facilitator than a traditional GM. There is sort of a need for that role. It's not like people sometimes compare it to Fiasco. I used to compare it to Fiasco because there's a similar structure in terms of narration. In Fiasco, you have 4 rounds where the players, every sort of has their turn, and then at the end you have this epilogue. Shinobigami is a little bit similar. You usually have a traditional round of 3 rounds where each player has a special scene. Or has their own scene where something mechanical in the game happens, and then there's a final showdown. There's usually like a pre. So it's actually cheating. So there's actually 4. There's usually like a pre one where everyone kind of describes or narrates the character first, and then you get into like the game starts. Um, and depending on, even if you run the same scenario, and the players are a little bit different, you're going to have like completely different outcomes each time. Someone's going to look at their secret goal, and they might say something like the secret might be, blankety blank is your sister, protect them. Actually, let me back that up. It might say blankety blank is your sister, but without anything spelled out after that. These secrets don't have to be mechanical. Sometimes they're just interesting points of important fiction, and then you see what the player does with them. In one scenario, you might have a situation where the player's like, "This is my sister," and even though they were like fighting with each other a little bit beforehand, they're working with each other, and they're the secret holding player is pushing towards working with his sister towards the end of the game. Meanwhile, in another session, it might just be like, oh, like it might be a secret held. Even those secrets often come out. They're like, well, this is my sister, but I can't let her know, otherwise she'll be in jeopardy. So I have to keep doing what I'm doing all along. Um, and it's very interesting because Shinobigami has, I kind of equated to having 3. It's like 3 kind of games in one. It's a very new type of role playing game. With its one sort of session structure, it does have role playing elements, right? You are role playing. It's fundamentally a game of role playing. There's not, you don't just dice battle each other. Um, the things you do in the game, the role you take, and the actions you do when you're playing your character uh, do wildly affect how the game is played. If you antagonize someone, that's going to lead to a very different scenario than if you were friends with them. And then the second piece is like it's got German board game elements, which we can kind of talk a little bit about. I pulled up some stuff on the Miro. We can explore that in a bit. But basically, there's elements where you have a character sheet and you have grids and stuff like that, and you have this sort of strategic balance element where you're sort of looking at if the other players are antagonizing your character and you want to sort of either fight them or whatever, you kind of have to plan out strategically your resources, your narration. So there's a little bit of like negotiation elements, and also the actual grid of skills and stuff on your sheet that you will pick some skills that may affect this person differently than other skills. And then finally, there's kind of like a imposter / trust mechanic, like Werewolf, Mafia, Among Us sort of thing, where it's not just like 2 people against the group. But everyone has a secret, and if you know those secrets, you can realize that like this person that you intended to bash into the ground because you're both working towards the same goal, like steal the thing for your clan. It might be a completely different situation where it turns out that you're secretly like friends with each other, and if only you had seen each other's secrets, you would have known that. So there's that. There's three levels of play there, which makes it very unique, um, very different from other games, and also it kind of pushes it towards a one sort of one scenario per evening sort of structure. Do you have anything to add on to that, Matt?
Not in particular. So Chaos Modifier asks if Shinobigami was the first game in the Cycle of Fiction line. It was not
Mm,
actually. It was the second game. The first game was one called Peekaboo, in
mm.
which the players are children and their ghost or monster companions, I believe. Um, and
Actually, I'm going to grab a couple. Keep talking. I'm going to grab a
okay,
couple of the books to hold up.
okay, cool. Yeah. So that was the first game. I don't think it was quite as well received as Shinobigami. It was a little rougher on the edges. It has since come out with a second edition. Um, it was really interesting that it introduced the skill matrix mechanic, except that like a lot of the actions that you can do were specifically tied to specific uh, skills on the matrix. That was changed up a bit for Shinobigami, which I think loosened it up and made Shinobigami into what it is. Um, so it was sort of like the rough draft. Um, but yeah, Shinobigami definitely benefited from being the second book in the series. Since
Yeah,
then, Shinobigami sort of went on to become sort of the framework for Magia Logia, uh, and then
that's this one here.
yes, in which you play uh, mages that are trying to recover runaway books that have become sentient and cause trouble. And also,
Dark Harry Potter is basically the easiest way to describe it.
yes, and then there's the horror game Insane, which is sort of it's sort of like
This is
a
actually the third source book, but yeah,
oh that's the SCP one, right?
yep. This is the SCP supplement.
Yeah,
I did the yeah. But
very cool. But so yeah, so Insane takes a lot from Shinobigami, in which like it's not PvP at all. Um, all of the PCs are working together, to solve like a Call of Cthulhu style mystery, and so like you're working through through the secrets, sort of once you unlock one secret, then you get like a scary shock or something like that, and then it tells you what secret you have to work towards next, and actually sort of more resembles the Enigma rules that we're going to get into a little bit later. Um, but Shinogami plus co-op plus Enigma sort of led to the creation of Insane.
yeah,
And then
I think the second supplement, the one before the SCP one, actually did have a mechanic where one of you is basically the traitor,
oh, that's cool.
and you had to fight or you had to suss them out, or at least the big reveal, and then
Mhm.
a little bit. I forget the name of the board game, House on a Haunted Hill, I think, or something like that. Like
Yeah.
where at one point something happens and someone becomes a traitor,
Hmm.
and then they chase all the other people down and try to either defeat their goal or kill them all.
Right. Yes.
So that was so Shinobigami and these others are very like Shinobigami is frenemy based. Like there, you can have a complete PvP scenario. Like basically, there's no deeper secret than there's something there's the goal in the middle. Go. And everyone has to like fight over it. Maybe with some twists. Maybe there's like there's an NPC who's really the bad guy. But there's a little bit of like even in the scenarios where everyone's co-oping with each other, there's still a little bit of frenemy tension. You're always going to be like trying to be the one who like we're all going to succeed, but I'm going to succeed just a little bit more, right? Um, and there's other games that are straight up like everyone at each other's throats, like a kill death business. Vulcan's going to be really happy. We're basically promoting their other books. Kill death business is very interesting. It's basically it's a reality TV show in hell, like all the player characters are dead people, and their souls are like reinvented, like brought up in hell, and basically this dude puts them at each other's throats, and you basically have like you have to basically play up like the fan audience. You have to do fan servicey stuff and say cool lines and stuff like that because the audience in hell is watching you. And if you end the game winning it basically by defeating the others through various combat moves, and getting the most fan awards and things like that, every player, because these people are all in hell, right? So they have like they're pretty dark characters. Like they, there's like a, it could be a serial killer, it could be someone who just did one wrong thing and it completely screwed up their life, whatever. But everyone has like this one thing, like the one wish that they want. And I remember, it could be where like I remember there was, I think if I recall correctly, there was like a serial killer, like high or college student, and he wanted, like, the thing that drove him crazy was like that his sister died young, and he wanted to hear his sister play the piano one more time. That was like his wish. So you can have these real kind of personal, real, like heart wrenching things, but you're all kind of criminals killing each other. Um, and there's others like Blood Crusade, which is a vampire monster hunter sort of game where everyone just sort of, it's a one night. These are all like one night games, but this one is everyone's on the same side. You're hunting the big vampire boss, and how you get there and how you do it is sort of how the game plays out. There's not really any sort of fiction or friction or anything between the characters. Um, there's others too. Like I was trying to hunt it down because I love the cover. What is it called? I'm forgetting. Blood Days Drive.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Dark Days Drive.
Dark Days Drive. Excuse me. Dark Days Drive. And which is basically you are the assistants. You're like the hot, uh, pretty boy assistants to a vampire, like usually like a child vampire. So basically, there's always sorts of like weird anime dark romance themes going on. Very interesting backdrop for a sort of game, and everyone's sort of like you end up sort of competing for affection, but at the end, you're not like stabbing and killing each other. It still plays up like a kind of like just sort of like a teenage anime style thing. A
Mhm.
little bit darker though, of course. Um, yeah.
I think
Uh,
I think either that one or Strato Shout is the latest one, right? For Strato Shout, the players are in a band, like a high school band,
ah, yeah.
and
Basically, K-On! It's like the K-On! Anime, but
yeah,
for RPG.
yeah, Kawashima
Yeah.
Sensei.
There's a number of them. Yeah. Like if you go to the Boken website, which I will pull it up here. It's boken.jp, bouken.jp. You can see my the screen is all white. But yeah, there's at least one, two, three. There's 12, 13, 14 official um, what are they called? Cyclo-fiction, dice fiction games in this line. Having said that, though, Shinobigami is a clear like winner in terms of like popularity and the most played. It's not that the other games are not as interesting; they are. Some of them are really interesting, and depending on who you are, you're going to really love where it takes you. It's just that Shinobigami just happened to win like this. Uh, this it had so many things going for it. The whole like friends but also enemies kind of play appeals to a lot of people. Of course, the one night cyclo-fiction style game appeals to a lot of people. Um, the fact that Shinobigami ultimately everyone's a badass, right? You get to be a badass version of yourself, or like a dream, like a you can make yourself, but a contemporary ninja living in Tokyo. That's pretty cool. It plays into a lot of bit of escapist fantasy, which is really fun too. And you're competent, right? You're not like it's not like level zero to hero sort of play. Um, it's almost like Cold War fiction, honestly. It's very much like Cold War era fiction, East Germany, West Germany spies and stuff. But just everyone happens to like have katanas and Uzis and stuff like that they're able to pull out. Um, but and for that reason, and just other things like the art, the support, and I think it's just the genre was such a hit in Japan that it's still, like, even years later, it was the second one released. There's now 14. It's still the top selling cyclo-fiction game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, like Chaos Modifier says, it's the only game that I've seen handling PvP in a good way. Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, all of the mechanics support PvP, but it also gives it gives everybody agency. Even if you're being attacked, uh, you have ways to mitigate it. You have it it doesn't lock you out from the rest of the game if somebody in your party or whatever tries to mess with you or something like in D&D or whatever, um, because it's very explicitly part of the game, um, but it's also part of the fun. Um, it you're supposed to be able to attack people as much as you want, and it really works out. It
yeah.
really is the only game in which I would want to do PvP, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in, yeah, like when I play my very story focused games, which I love. Things like Fiasco and stuff. Fiasco is a little bit different because that is another one night
Right.
sort of game. But anything where you can or have PvP, it's very mixed bag. At least with a game like Paranoia, you're kind of tripping over yourselves along the way, and there's kind of like this dark humor going on in the background.
Mhm.
Um, but other games with PvP elements, it's really hard. If it's campaign style play, that's just out for me. Like
Mhm.
it has to sort of be a one night experience,
Yeah.
because in that way you can just be like, all right, you just remember, it's like playing diplomacy, which I haven't done because I love my friends and I don't want to. I hate them. But it's like one of those things where you can just put in your helmet, and be like, okay, I'm going to be an a hole for like 4 hours, but then afterwards I can take off that, and then the next session I can be a good person. Um, so you can do that with a lot of games, but with Shinobigami, there's always a sort of pull back into, like, you can't just completely be an antagonist. Maybe talk about a little bit how we handle secrets. I know I think we kind of approach how we handle secrets differently, Matt and I,
Mhm.
and also there's really no like sort of official guidance for how to hand out secrets. It just sort of says like, okay, now you hand out the secrets to the players. How do you normally hand out secrets, Matt?
So yeah, I think I approach maybe the whole game a little bit differently than you do. I mean, there's no wrong way to do it, but this is the way that I do it. Whenever I make a scenario, I start with the scenario creation first. But in order to do that, I try to get I try to get the number of players, and I try to know more about the players beforehand, and then I write the scenario around the players, and I might have like a an idea or even like a pre-written scenario in mind in front of me when I create the scenario. But what I'll do is, I'll think, okay, these two are good friends, so I can put them against each other if I really had to or whatever. I'll just have a vague idea of who can and cannot sort of be put against each other. And usually it's not if they're gonna be problem players, I won't even play with them. But I
Yeah,
um
but you get a handle on your friends, right?
right.
And you know that some friendships are really strong and they can kind of like,
Mhm.
quote unquote, harass each other in the game
Right.
without it being a big deal. But then others might be newer or sensitive,
Mhm.
or and you want to kind of ease off on having those sorts of really hard conflicts, and then maybe have different types of conflicts or secrets. Is that where you're going?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And so once I have that in mind, I'll sort of like draw out like a visual map of like player A, player B, and player C and D, and then sort of like draw lines between them, and like this player is connected to them this way, and then but they're gonna backstab this one possibly, and then there's I'll draw a relationship map, and then I will use that to write out the secrets, and I will use that map to figure out where I need the mechanics to be at, either in the mission or in the secret, or in the introduction phase or whatever. And so I use the secrets mechanically to sort of um, lay out the story that I envision for it. But it's sort of like laying out dominoes. I'll lay out the missions and secrets, and then I'll just step back and let the players sort of knock them over. And if the story goes to sort of where I have to expect it to, because I don't want it to get there, but I sort of set it up so that it can get to a particular outcome. but it can, more often than not, it veers off wildly, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
It's also fun,
it's
but
also fun. Yeah.
uh, and it's sometimes it surprises me, and sometimes it's often better than what I sort of expected to happen. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, so basically, I use secrets to reinforce a narrative mechanically, but also like I try to make them shocking and interesting to reveal to each other. So that like the moments where, oh, you've uncovered his secret, hand it over, and so then I'm like sitting there, looking like Gendo Ikari, and
Yeah,
then
exactly. The Gendo Ikari
yeah,
pose. Yeah, everyone's like,
and
oh,
then
watching what happens.
and then and then one person sees a secret, their eyes go real big, and they hand it over to whoever they have the
Usually saying,
emote.
"Oh my
Yes.
god, oh." Here's the secret. Like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, and then they have
Yes.
to hand the secret to the other people who can see it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
yeah. Those moments are the best, especially when someone has been stabbing someone
Hmm.
the whole time, and then and the other person hasn't been like coming at them, and they see the secret. It's like you're secretly in love with them. Make sure they succeed, and you're like, what? I couldn't. If only I read this sooner. Um. Yeah. Yeah. That's actually it's actually kind of similar how I make scenarios. I know that some maybe it wasn't you then. I know that some other people when they make scenarios, they put the secrets out and they say, okay, I'm gonna have 5 players. I'm gonna have these 5 secrets, but they consciously do not sort of assign mentally which character is going or which player is going to receive which secret. Just sort of like make it that much more chaotic and sort of quote unquote interesting. However, I too am very uh, what is it called? Very towards knowing my players and working towards their strengths and making sure that just like you do, if someone is one of those players that will often, if left to their own devices, backstab everyone, then I will try to consciously give them a character or a secret that puts them. Uh, having to support others, or if I know that someone in a group is new, or is shy, I usually have them. I slip them the secret, with their character in mind. It is protect someone else, or support someone else
Hmm.
to sort of bring them into the story without having them to stab the person to their left or whatever.
Right.
Um, yeah, and that's another thing is that I often, probably more than you, I often run many sessions for new players to show them how the game works and stuff like that. It's not often that I go back to the same group and run a second scenario or third scenario. In fact, I've probably only done it with like 2 groups, maybe 3 times per group. Where I've taken the same friends and we've made new characters and had different, scenarios. It's mostly either online or face to face at conventions and stuff. I'm showing how to play the game to new players. But there are, you can get a sense of someone when they come to your table sometimes. And if I see someone's really shy, um, then I will give them the support someone else thing. If I see someone gleam, like when I say here are the clans and I explain them, and then someone's like, the bloodline of Oni clan, right? Basically the Sabbat in Vampire the Masquerade. If I see someone go like their eyes light up and they slap that character sheet like, I want to play this one. I'm like, okay, this player's dangerous. I'm going to give them the secret that says they are secretly in love with or the parent of or sibling of another character to bring them in. And the reason is because there's a lot of things in Shinobigami, especially for new players, but even regular players, they sort of bring to the table before without even realizing it. There's probably like a Noam Chomsky essay somewhere in there, but basically, they will, everyone knows that the Oni blooded are quote unquote dangerous. They're the ones that are trying to do something that's scary and could basically overthrow society. Whether is actually evil or not is kind of up in arms because we don't even know what the Shinobigami is, right? Um, so what happens is, if someone gets a character, all the other players at the table will, even if they're new, just from hearing the description of the clans, they're like, okay, that character is dangerous. That means I have to like watch out for that person. I have to be antagonistic to that person. And then if you give that Bloodline of One character an antagonistic secret, or at least a goal that basically puts them even more so at odds with the others, it ends up being like these three people here are playing this game with each other, and then this person over here is just kind of being stabbed at or stabbing back, and they're not really being included in the scenes. They have to kind of jump in. There's really nothing that's binding them to the, like there's nothing good but that they can see about the character to make them want to connect. So I kind of am. I'll watch out for that, and I'll bring those secrets out. I also love to see like Kawashima Sensei's scenarios and other people's scenarios in Japanese, because the scenario side, the real put kind of like the meat of the scenario is the secrets and how they work, right? So what I'll do is I'll pull up like a scenario book and I'll look at a couple scenarios and I'll take a look at the very secrets that new authors come up with. Sometimes they're not rule based. Sometimes it's just simply like this person is your long lost brother, sister. Do that with that information what you will. No numbers or anything involved. Others might be like, this is your brother or sister. Make sure that they end the game without falling in battle, or make sure they end up the game with the item, or something like that. Some those are kind of interesting as well, and I might give those out as well. And so what you can have is sometimes when I'm making these, when I'm borrowing them, some of these things like one that I like to use is something like depending on how many other players at the table. If there's like 4 or more, then it's usually like they'll say something like, make sure you end the game with 2 other characters having positive emotional bonds with your character. And that's actually kind of hard to do in the game. You really have to sink a lot of role playing and being friends with people to do that. But long story short, I hand out these secrets, which I find just kind of interesting. That they don't really centered around the plot. They're just like, you love this person's your sibling. Your clan is trying to steal the thing, so just steal the thing. Your clan hates that clan, so stab that guy. And your clan wants to be friends with other clans, so make friends. And they'll just like go, and then chaos happens. And at the end of the scenario, like two player characters have fallen in battle. Someone gets the prize and runs away. But then they all sort of look at their secrets, and every single person at the table is like, wait a minute, I fulfilled the condition of my secret. Does that mean I win? And like, yes, like even though everyone was kind of stabbing each other along the way, you can have games that end with everyone being a winner, but like that completely unintentional, which is very interesting. Yeah, because the winning condition doesn't have to be like you have a really nice day. It could be sacrifice yourself to help your sister, brother, band member, etc. Yeah.
So Yukimichi has a really good question. Before I get to it,
Mhm.
regarding syncing secrets with people. Just want to mention real quick where I had a session where I had a player I did not know, and I included a secret that included like mind control or something, in which I had intended to give this person full agency over their character. But
This one, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, but mind control was something that they were not comfortable with, and so I did the wrong thing and tried to convince them that it was going to be okay instead of um, changing it like I should have. They then felt uncomfortable playing and they dropped the game. And then I immediately realized my mistake and vowed never to do it again. So
Yeah.
so, be careful about the missions and secrets that you give your players, especially if there's any hint of something that that might be
You're taking the agency from the character or the
right,
player, yeah.
right, right. Obviously there's a lot of things even in a ninja game that shouldn't be part of a game, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, in fact, that lesson was so important that like that experience happened with Matt like a month before we were just a very few weeks before, like we had done our editing and everything, and we were doing layout, and we were like just maybe a week or so away from finishing layout. But that lesson was so important that I actually put it into the book on page 186.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we in the original Shinobigami book, there wasn't a lot of advice. There was the rules were hard coded, but it didn't give you the advice. It was very much written like a board game, in that when you play a board game, especially a German board game, you get these things that they call I forget what it's called. Basically, the effects of how things work in play. Like you read the rules and you understand the rules and you understand how you get from A to B, but you don't understand all the other sort of ephemeral things going on in the background that may affect the play of the game. And in a board game, you play it once and they start coming out, and you're like, oh, that was cool. I like that. Let's do it again. And that's great with board games. Sometimes board games are longer and shorter. With an RPG, you have like a 4-hour experience, and after that, you know, it's more than a board game where you're just pushing like little pieces of wood across a board. You actually kind of attach these characters. So as much as possible, we wanted to put a lot of advice in the English edition. Basically from like the blood and tears that we had as GMs running it for new people, and feedback from others that we heard, where to basically blast people with as much feedback as possible, so that they at least have for that first session, they don't have to fall into those potholes, those what's otoshiana in English? Those pits. They don't have to fall into those
Pitfalls,
pits
yeah.
that we fell into when we ran it for the first time, and that was very important because even in the Shinobigami, the replay at the beginning of the book that has the complete session transcribed from Japanese into English that Kawashima Sensei and others, Rasenji and others participated in. They early on, two of the characters set up this kind of master slave relationship, or like a master dominated relationship, where one character's like, I dominate you, or I am dominated by you. I forget what it was, and the other player's like, I'm cool with that. Are you cool with that though? And they were like, yeah, I'm cool with it. And they're like, okay, cool, we'll do this. And they ended up having it. It was a very cool way that they did it. Very, very what's it called? Positive. It wasn't like completely like something where you needed a safe word. It was very open, honest, and it wasn't like complete control. Knowing that the player could have been like at any moment just said, and my character snaps out of it, and that would have been fine. But for these two players, that was not a big deal. For Matt's player, that was a big deal. And even sort of having, as a player, as a GM, be like, if we receive something like that, you are question mark mind controlled by this person. And you can, as a player, you can be like, well, does that mean I can just simply just like, do I have to do everything they say? And the GM's like, no, you can just be like, you were at one point and then you just broke out of it, or the whole time, like I pretended to be it, but I was not mind controlled at all. You have all these options to do, but again, this person was a new player. They're probably even like new to RPGs in general, definitely new to Shinobigami, and then knowing that Shinobigami is going to have that sort of interplay, antagonism between the characters, they just weren't cool with that. And it got like that was one of the things, like we want to basically call attention to that sort of thing, that you have to be keep an eye on your players' faces when you play. If you use the X card and other sort of safety tools, most of the time Shinobigami is very much like teenagers throwing shuriken and fighting in the shadows and stealing a secret scroll or whatever, and there's not a big deal. There's not anything sexual going on necessarily. There's not anything like extreme violence. Of course, there's not like puppies are not being boiled, but there could be some little things like that come up, and you don't realize that they're a problem until the person just kind of apologizes and backs out the session, and you're like, oh, damn it, I know I've hit that pothole once or twice before in the past with other games too. So that was important enough to me that I figured let's go ahead and include that, even though we had to change the layout a little bit the last minute to fit that huge paragraph in, but it was worth it. Yeah.
So sorry to go back to Yukamichi's question. Have you seen people doing anything novel or unexpected with Shinobigami since it's been released in English? Since it's been released in English, well, there's that great that Die Hard scenario that Gas Modifier has made in English.
Honestly, from my side, there's just so many people playing it. I follow it on Twitter a little bit. Like I set up things on Twitter, and the seeing people's comments, talking about Shinobigami and stuff like that, and just whether it was just like I played it with friends, and they happen to be like these people that were like they live in the mountaintop. I just got an email, and I haven't shared it with you, Matt, yet. But from a person, and I haven't replied to them because I'm an asshole, but I have to. And basically, they said this person, wonderful person, TH, and if you're watching this, thank you very much. They sent an email about a week ago. Basically, they're saying that for the last 2 years, when this person goes home to their family for the holidays over Christmas, their family plays Shinobigami together,
Wow.
and uh, and they're hoping that they can do it again just over Zoom. They basically, thank you very much, keep doing what you're doing, that sort of thing. I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize that Shinobigami could be a Christmas tradition. Now I'm thinking about like maybe a special Christmas scenario, a ninja that stole Christmas or something.
It definitely was a Christmas tradition for me in a way because when I first found it, I was still in Japan and I would come home for Christmas or for whatever, and I would always get my friends, my hometown friends together and play. So that was like a yearly thing, usually at Christmas for me. So yeah, it definitely was a Christmas tradition. But that's cool
Nice.
to hear that from them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but like as far as like anything unexpected, I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm sure it's coming. There's been a lot of chat on our Discord about ways that the psychofiction engine can be used, and different ways that we can like push Shinobigami, um, and of course there's the Diamond Dogs David Bowie clone game that
Honestly, the most interesting stuff happened in Shinobigami since it's English has been like 50% has been Matt taking the system and doing really weird things with it, including Diamond Dogs. Explain what Diamond Dogs is, by the way.
okay.
This is awesome.
So yeah, Shinobigami in the cyclofiction system, there's the 6 different categories. Uh,
Each one corresponding to a clan, right?
right,
The secret clan, the battle clan, the magic clan, the
right,
subterfuge clan, etc.
right,
You got these 6 clans. Yep.
and every cyclofiction game is different in what those 6 categories are. In like the idle game, it's your looks plus your color plus whatever. They're all just totally
Your
different.
skills, yeah.
It
Yep.
it depends on the genre of the game, and the design focus or whatever. So the Diamond Dogs skill matrix, the 6 categories are sort of like the 6 uh faces of David Bowie, like the 6 personas. So there's like the Ziggy
David
Stardust one.
Bowie. You kind of gloss over that, but I'll say it again. David Bowie. He turned it into the David Bowie role playing game where all the players come to the table and you're like, which David Bowie are you? And here's 6 David Bowies, and you choose
Yeah.
which David Bowie you are.
Yeah. So you make your character from that. It's actually mostly based on Magica Logia, uh, where it's fully co-op, and you sort of go through, like this blasted landscape looking for the glass spider, but yeah. So uh, it needs a bit of work. The play test that I did a long ass time ago went really well because all my friends are weird and David Bowie fans. Um, but yeah, so it yeah, so there's
Yeah,
that.
I think you just basically wrap it up. It doesn't have to be like fully fleshed out, but just like
Mm,
throw it. We'll throw it at the backers at some point. Just be like, here's basically like some notes we put together.
mhm,
Yeah. And honestly, even though I'm working on sort of like a persona thing on with another game that I've been doing, Tenra. Sorry about that. And more on that later. But the I was looking at it going like, yeah, you can pretty much use this for like a persona style game as well. With each of the 6 categories being like basically a function of tarot or magic or combat or something like that. You can do a lot of crazy things. That when I go to, for example, Japanese comic conventions and RPG conventions, and people are doing homebrew scenarios and systems and things like that, I saw people putting together basically like a Ghost in the Shell based thing, which inspired me to make sort of Ghost in the Shell scenarios for Shinobigami. Um, someone else took the Ninja Slayer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ninja Slayer. Ninja Slayer is basically this Japanese writer who's like, uh, he basically said like, when you see crazy ninja stuff produced in other countries, um, it gets really weird. And um, basically, what they did was they wrote a ninja novel as if it was like someone from Mexico or Spain writing a ninja story. So there's all these sort of things that they kind of get wrong, and all these weird like it's really crazy. But it's basically called like the super ninja who's called Ninja Slayer, and he's like this cyber assassin, and it's just kind of just goes off the rails totally. But there's a huge fan. Well, at least for a while, it was basically kind of an internet hit. Um, and someone took that and made the Ninja Slayer Shinobigami based RPG. And that kind of leads me thinking like I know Kawashima Sensei's here, and Kondo-san is probably out there too. But in Japan, people kind of turn a blind eye to fan-based books and scenarios that come out, like whether they're published online or stuff like that. We're hoping in the future that we're going to either officially or unofficially or create a sort of license that will let people basically publish their own Shinobigami fan works, even for pay, perhaps. We can do it. We can easily create something where it's for free. So if someone wanted to basically put something together for free, they release it off their website, or that's no problem. If they wanted to charge for it, we kind of have to go like, we don't know anything about this, and pretend not to see it, even though it's out there. That's how the kind of the relationship works in Japan, even though it's official, like technically, that's the word I'm thinking of. Not illegal, but yeah, sort of illegal. Um,
Yeah.
it's basically using a license that you don't own and selling things for it. But in the dojin slash indie circles in Japan, it's a thing you do, and it's actually really done well, very cool. It's all about supporting the game and not superseding it, which is a balance thing there that's hard to kind of put into a contract, right? Like you can have these open source contracts or open gaming licenses and stuff like that, but they miss the heart of what it's supposed to be about. And so we want to support people who are doing this, but also make sure that of course everyone gets their due respect and money. As it comes to that. So we couldn't do something like an open gaming license for Shinobigami, but if someone wants to pass around on the web their free Diamond Dogs or whatever like thing that's influenced by whatever, we it's easy to turn a blind eye for that. So yeah.
Another cool thing I've seen in Japan, I don't, but it's there's a Fate, is it Stay at
Oh,
Night, or
Face Day
Stay
Night.
whatever it is, yeah. They turned that into a thing using the Shinobigami. I I think it's fairly close to the original Shinobigami rules. It
Yeah.
seems like it would be a good fit, but I haven't read too far into them. But another
Oh
thing I
yeah. By
was
the way, that's
oh,
that's kind of important distinction too. Is that there's the stuff that is like that is obviously like completely based on Shinobigami, like replays. Like if you posted a replay in and sold it, or like say like I created 3 new clans for Shinobigami. Here they are, and here are their abilities and stuff like that. That's one thing. But these other things are like the Diamond Dogs and what is it, the Ninja Slayer and this Fate Stay Night thing, where like absolutely took the core of the Shinobigami rules, erased everything ninja from it, and then just plugged in new things into it,
mhm.
which basically means it's a new game, and license wise, official wise, we don't care. So go ahead and do that. Sorry, get back to your thing now.
Yeah. So another thing I was working on is actually like a solo mode for Shinobigami, or like a one-on-one mode, where you're a lone ninja and you're working through basically enigmas. Uh, but like you're given a bunch of locations, and each scene, you choose a location, and then you try to flip over the enigma that's there, and um, you're trying to give yourself a bunch of bonuses for the final climax fight against a boss for that scenario or something like that. And I got pretty far in that. I had a running scenario that I had done a couple times, but then I sort of ran out of playtesters that were willing to try it out. That was a couple years ago. I haven't Since then,
Since then, we have Discord now, so we can get back on that bus.
yeah, but then also the Hula Confidential came out like right after I had started working on it,
Mm.
which is actually very close to what I was doing. It's the gumshoe version of a one-on-one gaming thing. It's pretty different, but it's actually like spiritually close to what I was going for.
Mm.
So maybe I don't know if there's a lot of demand.
I think there is. Like pulp adventure is, it could be like Philip Marlowe style detective things.
Yeah.
Sure, supernatural horror works for that, but Shinobigami works for that as well,
hmm
especially if there is something supernatural in the background going on.
hmm
Personally, I think that's awesome. I'm not into like 40s crime drama, but I'm super into like competent ninjas or like cyber future stuff that is basically pulp. So yeah, I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little
Um,
bit on that thread. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chaos Modifier asked if I'd seen the Nice Black Agents, the LOP stuff, and I haven't. I ran half of a game of Cthulhu Confidential, and it was really good, but my player sort of dropped out, and so I haven't really been able to do much with the solo stuff yet. Just kind of why I haven't really gone too much further with the Shinobigami stuff. It's just hard to get a solo game going. But I mean, it's really exciting stuff. It's a really cool um, way of running a game that I'm sort of I've seen Robin Laws use that in his new gumshoe stuff, uh, especially with like the Yellow King RPG uses a lot of like
Hmm.
the same mechanics.
One-on-one style
Uh,
stuff.
yeah, and but it plays it to the whole group, and so it's really cool. But I haven't seen the Knights of Black Agent stuff, but I'm sure it's really good. I assume that it builds on the Cthulhu Confidential stuff, so
Yeah.
I should take a look at it. Yeah, sorry, you're saying.
Oh no, not at all. But basically, one of the other things that I saw that came out in English, post that was this. So when we ran the initial Shinobigami campaign for Kickstarter, we put in some stretch goals, which is always a no-no. But we're like, we'll do it right this time. And one of the things that was kind of popular at the time, which we kind of got into, was getting a bunch of our friends that are authors and saying like, hey, are you interested in like writing a scenario? The scenarios for Shinobigami are very simple. We pay a little money for it, but we want to get this thing where we help promote them, and we just have. It's not so much they promote us, but just that we would have a collection of scenarios. And my thought was that we're going to really get involved with that after the first book came out. First book came out a lot longer than I hoped. So right now we're basically contacting those people to see if they're still interested, and if not, we're going to do it ourselves or get other authors to contribute. Because a lot of new people have come into the scene that are talking about Shinobigami and the new scenarios they've run with it, and they're really wild. So we'd love to, basically, we want to support anyone who wants to do scenario writing. So we're going to start reaching out publicly about that. But back to the ones so we actually, out of the group of people we collected to contribute scenarios, a few of those people actually completed them, and two of them. So, like the long term goal is to basically get a bunch of these together, maybe 6 to 10, and then publish them all at once. And there's been like kind of a fire under my ass to get a little bit to move that faster along, and maybe get that within the first few months of next year at the latest, because I've been sitting on these two, because these two people, like, well, a couple people did, but there's two in particular that came to us like right after we released the sample PDF. Two people just like went on fire. That was Sunil from Korea and J.A. and Anyong, aka J.A. from Philippines, put together these two scenarios for Shinobigami. One was set in Korea, where they were from. The other was set in the Philippines, where they were from. And not only was it a Shinobigami scenario, like a typical good Shinobigami scenario with like, there's cultural elements. You're going to steal the Korean trinket or the Filipino trinket this time rather than the Japanese trinket. But not only that, they had a few pages of backstory about how the ninja war was going on in their culture, like this sort of like a history rewrite of like here's how things have been going on in Korea, and they incorporated pieces of Korean history and drama and folklore and martial arts and stuff into the Shinobigami uh, thought. And same thing with the Philippines, Jay's work, and uh, coming up with some like as much as like having new clans, like new clan names, having new types of like scenarios or locations and things like that. And like I was just blown away by this. It wasn't just like we're going to like I was expecting, and it would have been totally cool with a typical 1 to 2 page Shinobigami scenario where okay, instead of we're fighting in sort of this building in Tokyo, we're going to be fighting in building Y in Seoul, or we're going to do this and it's going to be in a Korean barbecue rather than in a sushi place. Just like basically just a few highlights, but nothing deeper than that. Same thing with the Philippines. These two guys, they went like nuts putting these things together, and they're so great. Um, it still blows me away. It's been a few years that we've been sitting on this stuff, waiting to get others to put into a collection to release. I think I'm going to lower my bar and basically just collect 1 or 2 more, get these out there to everyone because they're really cool. If we're not able to collect a group of scenarios early, we're going to just basically release this power pack, like this cultural power pack of Shinobigami set in Philippines/Korea. At the same time, what I did was rather than sort of recruiting like a bunch of my favorite/friend authors that happen to be in the U.S., different walks of life, right? Different backgrounds and walks of life within the U.S. or Canada or England. I reached out specifically to friends and acquaintances in other cultures or languages. Like I have a Thai friend, I have a Singapore friend that are authors, and I recruited them, and I'm waiting to see what they do. I've got basically a team in France and Germany that are kind of chomping at the bit. They had to delay some things, but they're waiting for the book, and now they're basically putting their brains together for basically doing what I just described. But what's the German version of that? What's the French version of that? So we might see, like basically Shinobigami around the world, what it would look like in other cultures from one person's point of view, and then someone else from that culture might say like, I don't like that one. I'm going to do another one. They do something completely different. It's just as cool. But just seeing the love that the game's getting around the world is just really cool to us, and that's been kind of driving us even through know, depression slash the last 4 years of the presidency slash watching all sorts of things happen like with tax changes, postal service changes that have been really just kind of wrecking us left and right. But aside from just the whole like, oh, I got to do it because it's got to get done. It's I got to do it because people love this game. They're playing it. They're loving it. We need to get it in their hands, and it's been really fueling both of us to push forward and get that done.
Mm.
But so those are the sorts of cool things that I've seen is when people like basically took it and said like, I live in France. Here's what French Shinobigami in the Shadows of Paris would look like. So I'm hoping to kind of see more of that in the future too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much that can be done, like for each culture to have, like this, like their interpretation of each different clan. Because like it's clear that the 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 Shinto clan that's in that's they're basically the Illuminati clan, right? So the American version of it would just be straight up the Illuminati, uh, and there's we can change all six clans into something, um, for fitting American culture. That'd be kind of boring because they're all kind of done to death over here, which is
Yeah.
sort of why it's so interesting to me to see these tropes done in Japanese. Really cool. But it'd be cool to see them, in other cultures as well.
Yeah. Go ahead. What you're gonna say
I was gonna
something?
say, but regarding scenario creation, so the tools that we have right now for scenario creation are pretty robust. You can put mechanics wherever you want to. You can put mechanics in the introduction phase. You can do GM scenes that introduce mechanics, um, or you can just use the Shinobigami framework, and when you write your scenario, just throw in mechanics to create an exciting scenario in any which way you wanted to. Um, but like the one thing that breaks scenario writing completely open is something that was in the third book, and this is called Enigmas. Um, and some of the writers that we reached out to,
This one.
yes, they came back with like these really wild ideas for scenarios, and I was like racking my brain on how we could make them work with just the first two books, and frankly, some of them don't. Um, but with the Enigmas, uh, you can make just about anything work. Because
Tell us what enigmas are.
okay, so enigmas are basically secrets that that are not connected to anybody, sort of. Um, they're a handout, right? And they may or may not be put out with all of the other handouts at the beginning of the game. There's a lot of things that are not set in stone with Enigmas, so they change from scenario to scenario. Basically, it's another handout you put down on the table, and you need to do something in order to flip them over. And when you flip them over, then there is a mechanical effect. So basically, they're sort of like free floating secrets. But you can have them so that somebody's secret, when revealed, brings out an enigma, or you can have it so that the enigma starts out at the beginning of the game, or maybe only the person who holds the prize can see the enigma. But when you do see the enigma, maybe you have to do a skill check in order to see the back of the enigma, or maybe maybe everybody has to succeed on something or other. Basically, you have to unlock them somehow. When you flip them over, it does something.
Yeah. From what I understand, it's sort of like it adds a little bit of a programming language. I mean, secrets are already kind of a programming language where you can do some cool things with them.
Exactly.
But enigmas are basically even more so. You add sort of like a scripting language into Shinobigami where if X
Yes.
happens, then Y happens with rules things.
Yes.
And on top of that, yeah, like the ones I saw were pretty cool. Like you can basically have them just kind of open, but a lot of them are actually tied to like either the boss character or a location or an item in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds, and with that said, it can add a bit of like a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're familiar with like Risk Legacy or Pandemic
Mm-hmm.
Legacy, where you basically, you say like, okay, we're gonna have a scenario and there's gonna be like a NPC boss character. That's something you can say at any Shinobigami game, like to let the people know they're not going to be at each other's throats. There's going to be some sort of hidden or open boss character that they're going to have to fight eventually in the last scene.
Mm-hmm.
But then you basically put like two handouts on the table. One says like, they both say at the top of the thing Enigma, so everyone's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
something big is going on here. And then one actually shows like the boss's name and describes him, and then the other one shows like something that no one discussed yet. It says something like a scroll of whatever, and it just physically describes what the scroll looks like. But you now have these things on the table, and so everyone's looking at them and like not even know what the rules are behind them, but knowing like, oh crap, I have to figure out a way. I'm gonna do my Shinobigami stuff, but at some point we're gonna have to start interacting with these things that have been presented to us. Um, and yeah, like one I was just looking up just a few minutes ago. One was basically like, one actually was an enigma that made um, a boss more powerful. Like basically, if you didn't, you like, for example, the boss has a secret, and the secret was basically like the boss gets a piece of information, or here's like a little bit of information about the boss, but knowing the secret is so dangerous that you take 1 point of damage, which is big in Shinobigami. You usually need to have 6 points of damage. You take 1 point of damage, and so anyone who sees that secret gets 1 point of damage. However, if you were to have figured out the enigma beforehand and did whatever the rules were to activate it, that would have like taken away that boss's power to give out 1 point of damage.
Right.
Or alternately, an enigma, if you don't do it and it activates, will add that 1 point of damage to everyone who learned the boss's secret. So you can have that sort of, again, scripting language thing going on in the background.
Mm-hmm. So this is the omnibus edition of all the collected rules of Shinobigami, and like sort of like, so the Enigma rule itself seems really simple, um, but like, so this is the page that sort of first two pages that explains the rule, and then
I'm looking for that too here. Yeah.
and then so there's three pages that explains the rule, and then there are several pages of example enigmas that are in the book. So enigmas are actually quite complicated. Although just the idea of this additional point of contact, or this floating thing out there that you can use basically, like a programming language. So like whenever I envision writing a scenario, I can, you can sort of wire things, and now you throw this enigma in there, and now just your options for the relationship chart sort of goes 3D now, right? Because
Yeah.
it just the possibilities just are so much larger. It's really crazy, the things that you can do with enigmas. Um, so once we put out the enigma rules, then yeah, things are going to be uh, writing scenarios is going to be quite different.
Yeah. And by the way, so what we're going to do is basically we're keeping the contents of the second book, which is this. This is the second book. We're keeping the contents of the book as is, and releasing it just basically the same way we released the first book, maybe with a little bit of advice and stuff like that. Now I'll talk about what's going to be in the second book in a moment. But what we're going to do is basically right at the time that this is being shipped out to people is when we're going to put the Enigmas rules into basically a simple instead of basically translating the entire third book or going for the entire omnibus book, which I'm going to describe also in a moment. We're going to basically tighten up the simplest, like the simplest version of the Enigma rules, and basically provide it to the supporters who had backed us on Kickstarter and BackerKit, and then make it available for everyone through Twitch.io and the like, basically at a very low cost. But for the people who backed us, it's going to basically, if you backed at the level that gives you like PDFs and stuff like that, they're going to get that for free. It's going to be just a few bucks. It's not going to be much, but it Shinobigami is awesome. And honestly, in all the years, I've run at least 100 tables of Shinobigami, no lie, in the last 6 or 7 years, maybe 8. My running Shinobigami goes way before we even thought about getting the license to it. So probably like within 1 year of it being released. So like 11 years ago, 10 years ago. So I've been running it all the time. Having said that, I've only used Enigmas twice in my games. I was able to do like everything I wanted to do outside of that Enigmas, but the ones that I did made things come up that, again, as Matt described it, almost like 3D. Like you have a lot of other things you can flex with. You can have it might open things a little too much, where you don't want to go too deep into it on your first scenario, where you're going to have like 5 things that pop up in the game that become trackable.
Mhm.
You don't want that to happen, but at the same time, just having something with a little bit more depth, or something where you see this game is going to feature something, the Temple of Malice or something, that's in the middle of the table, and everyone's looking at that card going, what the hell is the Temple of Malice?
Mhm.
How do I activate it? Do I want to activate it?
Mhm.
Like, so
Right.
all these little things come up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like somebody had asked um some advice for like a haunted mansion or something um recently, and they said that they wanted traps in their haunted house, and Shinobigami traps don't work because you can't force players to walk
To do
through,
things.
right. uh but if you want to use an enigma, you just put it down on the table, and the enigma says, the uh, spike pit on on the second floor, uh, in front of the kitchen or something. So now you've put the trap out there, and now, so now it's just out there. You don't even have to say anything about it. So now, if the ninjas want to get the information, now they have to brave that trap.
Yeah.
And so that's just like, just
Exactly. So like yeah, it's kind of backwards when you think about like the old Call of Cthulhu style play or old first edition Dungeons and Dragons where you have all these traps. You don't tell the players in advance. They stumble upon them and
Mhm.
bad things happen. But they have to do that. They have to get over the trap to get to the good stuff at the end. In Shinobigami, you could basically create like a secret, basically a floating secret called an Enigma, which is basically a spiked trap or whatever in front of the library, and people see that and they're like, okay, well, underneath this thing is going to be some sort of piece of information that's going to help us out, obviously.
Mhm.
So, people are going to either be watching other, like, someone's going to trip it up. So, whether they're going to be the first one to get that information, or whether they're going to like hold back because they're a little bit low in hit points and they want to see someone else do it first, and maybe it's one of those secrets that might pass to them. Who knows? So there's a lot of that sort of play going on, but it does attract like the attention because these things you throw on the table become focal points, and it just becomes that much more of a attractor to the eyes. Yeah.
And that's just a real short example of what you can do. There's so much more you can do with them, and I'll explain them more eventually. I'll probably start doing series of classes or something. Um,
Mm.
Actually, I'll show this off here. So we have our Miro board that we've got set up here. Um, one of these days, I'm going to start the like a series of streamed videos about how to create scenarios, about how to run the game smoothly, a bunch of stuff like this using this board here. Um, eventually, this will be a thing.
Yeah. Yep. So probably it's right around the time we're going to be shipping the books out is when we're going to have a little bit more time on our hands to go back and like not only fulfill the stuff that we've been promising to fulfill, but also to like work on some of the new stuff, and also recruit people, our fan base to publish their own stuff, or like officially, unofficially, etc.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're looking forward to that. Yeah, so we've been kind of like Periscope down recently. If you've probably seen, we haven't been super active on social media. We haven't been posting too many like updates for backers on Kickstarter and stuff like that. Again, that's because we've been just sort of so focused on getting the books out to people and then making sure they get delivered, and then working on the production for the next book. That we haven't had time to just kind of like kind of slow down, just be like, okay, let's just talk about the game now. So we're kind of like, we'd rather get the game done rather than talk about it.
Yes.
So we're going to be a little bit more Periscope down for the next, like, until the next until the second book comes out in English, and the limited edition book. Once that gets out, that's when we're going to be more open with that stuff. And meanwhile, we're also doing stuff on the side with Ryutama and Shinobigami, or excuse me, Ryutama and Tenra as well, for our other projects. So it's a little bit messy, especially in the years of Trump slash COVID. It's been putting a strain on all this, but yeah, we've dusted off enough that we're able to get up and move forward with that. Let's talk about what's in the second book a little bit.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so second book, here's the Japanese version. It is basically the same size as the first book, which I don't have here in front of me right now, unfortunately. So yeah, but basically the book format, we're going to keep it like, this is the size difference. Here's the English book. Here's the original Japanese book. The first book was this size as well, and we're basically making it larger. The reason is that the original Japanese, um, it's a solid book, but the one of the habits of Japanese writing and layout is to cram as many characters in a page as possible, and sometimes it's very hard to read on the eyes. So we want to, of course, just like the first book, we're going to keep the font at a readable, like a very nice readable size, and basically keep the same page formatting that we have. So it's going to be basically about the same size. It's also going to include a replay at the front, just because we wanted to keep the two core books basically exactly as they are in Japanese, um, complete with replay in front and rules in the back. The second book has new rules. That was kind of the new feature of it. The sort of the killer soft of the second book is the rules that it has, and we could have released those. Like, we're planning on releasing the Enigmas without releasing the original, it kind of dated at this point, book that has the replay in front. We could have just released them like that, but um, it's interesting enough, and it continues the series enough that we wanted to basically release the second replay as well. So the second book also has a replay. You can see, just like our English version, the Japanese version is marked with white and black border. The white border being the replay with pieces of art here and there, and the black border being the rules section. That's my sort of initial pitch. Do you want to
Yeah,
take
so
us through some of the contents?
let's see. Some of the things that are in there include so there are rules for normals, quote unquote
Yeah.
normals, where you can play
Hint:
as,
they're not normal.
yeah. um so there are options for a new type of character. I think they're mostly meant to be NPCs, but you can play as them as well. You are not a ninja. But there are several different types of normals. One of the types is walking disaster, I believe. Uh, so
Yeah.
it sort of gives you an idea. Mechanically, you have one secret, but then you have two other, I think they're called personas or something like that, um, that act like secrets. So like you have three face down handouts. You know what two of them are because you chose them yourself, and your secret. So whenever somebody would take your secret, pull up all three and you say, okay, well, which one do you want? So then one of your three secret handouts is taken, and it might be something like, well, this is not the secret. This is the persona of the normal, and now you've just taken 2 damage or
Yeah. You find out a little bit more about them, but you end up taking some sort of usually some sort of penalty, because the walking disaster is basically like it's like the character where all the other characters kind of attracted to this person,
mhm.
but at the same time, the more they interact with them, the more crazy things happen, basically.
There, and it's not all negative. I think one of the categories is um, the opposite word. It's mostly good things, but it's something like that. So basically, you're non shinobi.
Yeah.
So that's a character option. For me, the big thing that's in the second book, the most exciting thing is the sub clan stuff. Um, every clan has, I believe, it's 2 sub clans in there, and it might be 3.
3 actually.
3, okay, even better. Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's standard.
so the sub clans are really interesting. They sort of go into like the setting. Um, the first book doesn't have a whole lot of setting stuff in it, but the second book really digs into it with the sub clans. You have like really awesome things like like the uh, the Demon Hunter clan. Off the top of my head, but the their targets are the bloodline of Oni, and so like basically they live to hunt down demons, right? So one of the subclans is a subclan where they have taken on some of the blood of Oni themselves and use that to fight the Oni. So every subclan has their own set of subclan nimpo, the special nimpo that you could only take if you are part of that subclan. So that that Kurama Shinryu, I think it is, subclan, they have options that are very Oni like for their subclan Nimpo. So it's really cool. They're very thematic, very flavorful. Um, yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah. One of the ones that yeah, and it's basically one of those things where uh you don't have to use them, and honestly, in all the games that I played, I've only used them like again once or twice in all the years I've played. um they're especially great for when it's one of those things you don't want to have to worry about them for your first game, but if your
Mhm.
players have all played, especially a few times, they're so great to add like a little bit of spice, especially if you have like two people from the same clan but a different sub clan.
Mhm.
One of the ones I find interesting, and one of my friends, Mendez, he wrote a scenario basically for Shinobigami that's kind of like a Hollywood scenario. It's all about basically Stephen Hayes, if you are familiar with Stephen Hayes, who is basically the the person in the 1980s who's responsible for all the crappy ninja movies, or at least all the information and a lot of misinformation about ninjas that came out from the 1970s and 80s were pretty much all from this one guy who had his own really weird ninja school that he was, of course, the master of, and took a lot of money in fees to keep his school up, etc. It's one of the three modern ninja schools. Ninja schools in real life, not anyway. Long story short, he wrote a scenario that is kind of a little bit poking fun at that. But at the same time, the Lost Ones have a subclan, which is basically the United like Ninja Nation. Or it's kind of like the UN for ninjas, but it's Stephen Hayes. Like any way you look at it, it's basically like it's like the World Council of Ninjas, but it's led by people that may or may not, like, from from other countries that may or may not be like actual ninja. I mean, they are actual ninja, but like it gives that interplay of, like, basically when you see quote unquote ninjutsu being practiced outside of Japan, sometimes it's legit, sometimes it's super fake, and this sort of kind of plays up that aspect to it, which is in a few sentences of background, which is just really cool. Yeah. So those are the two big things. Each of the subsequent books that came out had a few pieces of some of them featured a replay, but each one kind of featured like some sort of new piece of tech for Shinobigami. Some more interesting than others. Enigma is basically the black hole in the room because it was so fascinating and interesting and huge. But other stuff like the rules for normals and the subclans is kind of cool. There's other books that had other stuff, and those were kind of compiled eventually into the what Matt was describing as the omnibus book. And I want to briefly tackle this as well because it's interesting. So some people who are familiar with Shinobigami in Japan were basically like, why didn't you just do this book instead? And what happened was the omnibus book came out so after Shinobigami came out, and it's been around for a couple years. They did a revised version, which is the version we based our translation on. And around the same time, they came out with the omnibus book because people in Japan just wanted, the rules for these different things like enigmas and subclans were scattered over several of these smaller books, and they wanted one reference book that they could use. And so Boken basically took that advice. They put it together in one book, released it. It didn't bring new people to the table. It really didn't, because but it was a good reference for people who were already familiar with the game, because it took the contents of these, it removed the replay, so there's no replay in this big book, but it just kind of stuck to the rules and added more rules, sometimes like double the amount of, like, for example, the abilities for the normals in the second book, there's like double that amount in the omnibus, or the rules for the Nimpo that are specific to subclans, there's double that in the omnibus book. So what our plans as well, especially now that I kind of announced in the last Kickstarter thing that we've recruited a new translator, which is going to help us out a lot, and it's going to let us basically tackle more information and let us get to more cool things that we kind of dreamed we'd do one day, but didn't have a serious plan until the books came out. And then we're going to kind of like revise our plans and kind of see what we could and couldn't do. Now we can do those things. So straight up, we're actually going to produce a lot of this content from the omnibus and release it later. We're not going to release the omnibus though. And the reason is this, especially not as a core rulebook. It's not good as a core rulebook for new Shinobigami players. It just is not. It is a great reference if you have Shinobigami and you had like the 6 Japanese books and you wanted all the rules in one place, and you were very familiar with it, and you knew the Nimpo back and forth, and you knew which ones you wanted to take and didn't take. And the reason for that is because the Shinobigami core book, the smaller book, is very tight. It has that replay in the front. So if you've never even played a role-playing game before, or have not played a role-playing game with trust and frenemy mechanics like Shinobigami, learn what the game looks like by reading an example of play. That's a wonderful thing. And then you read the rules and see how it plays out. The Omnibus book is a great reference, but it has so much data that it absolutely triggers that analysis paralysis that you see in like board games and other RPGs, like for Exalted with Charms, or Double Cross, where the original awesome Japanese book was very tight and controlled. the English translation included all the contents in one book, and so like if you're making your first character, it says choose 5 abilities, and there's like 80 abilities to choose from. Yeah, it's mind-numbingly amount of content. And well, this one isn't quote unquote as bad as that. It is excellent, and the extra rules and stuff they have are great too. And we will at some point release them. But we specifically decided not to pour these contents into the core book because we wanted to. The core book is tight. It's got the quote unquote like most accessible and coolest abilities in it. The stuff in here is great for like once the players are used to Shinobigami. Oh, that player took a Bloodline Oni, so I expect them to shoot me with Meteor. If you get to that level where the players expect what's going to happen with each other, these kind of expansion books are great because they provide more options, so you can kind of be a little more secretive. It adds a double. But if you're playing for the first time, all it does is just floods you with content. You're not going to go no left from right. So that's why we're kind of putting that off until later, until more of the core stuff is done.
Yes. Also, I think if we tried to tackle the entire omnibus, it would be like 2030 by then or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you definitely know of us. The way we do, which is a lot of good intent and late follow through. Apologies. But yeah. So what we're thinking of doing is basically instead of releasing it as an omnibus, basically cutting it up into its component rules sections, and then presenting those rule sections as smaller downloadables that you can get for like if you wanted to have the Enigma rules, you can just get the Enigma thing. If you wanted to see the ceremonial Nimpo rules that come from the Warring States era supplement, you can just if you play the other stuff, you can just get that for like $3 or $5 or whatever, and go through those rules. So we're going to basically be able to do it much tighter with that sort of plan rather than just releasing the omnibus, because again, the omnibus is cool, but it's for our purposes and your purposes too, for understanding it, it's best to just strip it of its parts and provide it to you in segments, and you can pick and choose what you want, and even let people rate. Like, oh, I love the Enigmas. That's going to be, that's probably going to be higher rated and more purchased, more downloads, etc. Meanwhile, things like the ceremonial Nimpo, or some of the other sort of not used as much rules, like the Yoma rules, which is basically like monstrous deity rules. Those rules are not going to be used as much. They're going to be of limited use, and you can just sort of pick and choose which ones you want and add them up from there. That's again for new people coming to the game. The people who backed it originally, if they backed it at the level with the PDFs, you're going to get all the stuff for free eventually.
do we want to talk about Ron?
Yeah. What's that?
Do we want to talk about this right now, or?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So yeah, so the new translator that we have, Ben, who's a great guy, he has agreed to start working on this one, Untitled Ron. Basically, it's the Sengoku era version of Shinobi. I don't think we're gonna do the replay. I think we're just gonna do the rules.
Actually, yeah, we are.
We are. Oh, okay.
We are going to do the replay.
Okay, okay. Well,
he agreed to it. Yeah, like basically, if it was anyone else, I'd be like, yeah, man, we're not going to do the replay. We're just going to do the rules. I looked at Ben's level of quality and speed, and he puts us both to shame. Good. Like, honestly, I mean, this translation is his day job. He does this not only like as we do at night or at home or for like partly for the job, but we do other things as our primary job. This is his day job and stuff like that. So he's going to be able to do that. So he will be doing the replay. Now, one small thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the replay is really big in this book, as you can see, and it's very, it's very much Goku Hidai. Everything about it. Do you want to say something about it?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's a really long replay. The rules in the book are basically the current 6 ninja clans do not exist in their current form yet, right? Because it's several hundred years ago. Instead, there are like 12 or 13 different clans that over time are shaken down or combined uh, into the current six. But so there are 12 different ninja clans, right? Including like the Iga and the uh, oh, all kinds of different clans, and they all have their own specific specialty and their own specific clan nimpo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the nimpo are also different. There are certain nimpo that you cannot take that are in the core book. There are new nimpo that you can take in this. Um, there's new ogi options, stuff like that.
Yeah, how to make your own ogi
Mhm.
is one of the things. You basically combine a bunch of things together to make like kind of a special ogi. There's rules for that.
Mhm.
And one of the other things was the ceremonial nimpo,
Yes.
which is basically. Sorry if you've read that, go for it.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I think we might have called them something differently in our translation. I think it mentions them somewhere. I
Mm.
think it might be ritual, but ceremonial ritual nimpo. Yeah, they're definitely a thing in here. It introduces them. They're very cool. They look like this. So a lot of
Yeah, like a giant
data on
checklist.
them. Yes. So basically, in order to complete this nimpo, you have to do a bunch of stuff. That might be like skill checks. It might be like something that you have to do narratively, and yeah, you check them off. And once all of the checkboxes are filled, then the nimpo goes off. Ritual is complete. Ceremony.
And it's big. It's like a scenario changer thing. Yeah.
Um, so a lot of really
So yeah,
exciting stuff.
yeah. If you grew up on Tenchu, like the video game Tenchu series, or like Shinobi Imashime, which is the better version of Tenchu, or like Shinobi Heart Under Blade, aka Basilisk Ninpucho,
Mhm.
Ninja Scroll. It's that basically. Definitely that. So at least definitely the feel of that. One thing I will say is this: is that uh, when we saw these different supplement books and we're thinking translate the rules and stuff like that, and we're thinking like maybe for the ritual nimpo we'll maybe translate and release that at some point as well, but what like this run, this Sengoku era, aka 1500s warring states period, supplement was just a little bit out of our reach in terms of what we knew we could do given our time and resources, because basically if you knew like 2 years ago, in this whole scene, the only people doing translation was like me and Matt and like Aaron
Mhm.
from doing Golden Sky Stories. That was it. Like, and we would hope at some point to find others and build up this whole community of people who were interested in translating, who could translate. Not to work for us specifically, but basically, if they want to take on games and stuff like that, they can do it. And yeah, and recently that's been paying off. Ben came out of nowhere, and he's basically his Silver Vine publishing imprint. Go ahead and look that up. We've linked it to it before. We are very cool with him and what he's doing because a lot of these people are our friends that he's translating works of. He's sticking to independently published RPGs, but the stuff he's doing is great, and he's helping out, and so because of that help, we're able to do the supplement. But one thing is that I am very particular, a little bit perfectionist on that point, but very particular on not releasing something that looks pretty but you can't play. And what I mean by that is this: I've seen a lot of Kickstarters go out where like they're like when they have like a collection of like an RPG comes out and they're going to, oh, we recruited 10 authors to write these chapters of this omnibus where you can play the game in different settings. But you look at it and it's like, yeah, they did the writing, but I don't have enough information about this culture to play this, or I don't understand. Like for example, we're going to get this guy who writes about India to set it in India. We're going to write this person around France set in France, but they don't include as much information to know like what the like historic India thing was or stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, like if I was able to crap time and just like stop time and just be like, okay, I'm going to take a year off and just write. Um, and yes, I would have basically written enough text from a role playing perspective to get people understanding what the Sengoku Warring States period was like, so they understood like all the little details about not necessarily war history, but just like what did people eat, what did villages look like, what did how did people travel, why did you need a passport to travel within Japan, those sorts of things. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do all those little details. Maybe a few, and I'm having basically Ben, as he's translating for us, flag specific things like I do when I say anytime where I have to go down a research rabbit hole. I usually put an asterisk there, and I come back, and then in a later edition, like a director's cut or something like that, I'll say, "Here's some cool stuff that I found," and we're basically doing that, but we can't go too deep into it. So basically, we're going to have to we're going to translate the Sengoku Era supplement, but we're going to have to rely on people to basically do their own research. Sengoku is not so hard though, because again, a lot of ninja themed anime and fiction and stuff was written in that era, like, or not written in that era, written about that era, right? Like the Ninja Scrolls, the Tenshu, all that stuff is around, or at least very heavily influenced by that era. So you don't have to, you can just watch it like a movie or an anime or two and get it and play. But if you wanted to know, like, I don't know what people ate or something like that, you might have to go on Wikipedia and do a little bit of research yourself. We basically we wanted to get the book out at some point without having our sort of perfectionist spirit creep up and be like, oh, we can't release it now, we have to write 4 chapters about what the Sengoku era cuisine was like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, I'll just ask you, hey, go find an emulator, download Oboroshi, or was it Oboro Masamune,
Mm-hmm.
and watch all the cutscenes where the characters are eating food and be like, that's what they ate. So
Yeah, maybe we can find a textbook or something.
Yeah, eventually, yeah, we'll just have we'll have a suggested reading or watching list, sure. But we're not going to be able to do like the perfect, like the pages background to get you understanding what the era was like.
Yeah.
But hopefully, watching enough anime and movies and stuff will help that along.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was it from my end. Did you have anything more you wanted to add, Matt? And then we're going to maybe take last minute questions and stuff if there's any left.
Yeah. Any final questions? I guess we
Yeah, we
can.
could basically talk forever
Yeah.
on
Oh
this
yeah.
subject.
Certainly. I mean.
And this is just for Shinobigami, yeah,
Yeah.
alone.
I
But
mean, even in Shinobigami, we haven't talked about the pro wrestler uh, supplement or the Heian area supplement,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
mean, it was, I think it was like the 6th or 7th book they rebooted the setting, um, like a soft reboot where the world is already infested with demons, and it actually gives the Oni clan a small power boost. But
mm.
that's not going to be. Oh, maybe we could include that in the in the set of.
Well, it is basically it. This is that book, and it
Mhm.
is basically nothing more than a replay.
Yeah.
It is basically just a replay where
Oh,
some GM said, "I want to do this about the world," and then they basically just made a replay book. And in the back, there's like just 1 or 2 pages of here's the
well,
few things I
well,
did.
hold on. Let me see if I can
But
find it.
yeah,
There's actually a different one. Hold on.
oh, is it the Ayakashi one? It might be the Ayakashi one, right? The one, this one. I think that was the one.
So this one. This is the book that actually has like sort of guidelines for the for the alternate world. Uh,
Mm,
but this is the one that introduces um just a small rule change to bring the Oni up to the same power level of of the other clans, because there's one small thing that the Oni do not get that everybody else gets, and that is two gaps on the skill matrix.
yeah, the gap on the left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So turns out that one gap is actually a really huge thing. So so Kawashima Sensei came up with this brilliant and insanely complex thing where Oni can choose to Hulk out and become a Yoma, uh, and so they they gain a bunch of power and become like the full Oni version of themselves, but at the cost of possibly staying in that form forever and succumbing to evil. Um,
So yeah, if you're familiar with Tenra, it's like a combination of the samurai surgery and becoming an Ashura at the same time.
Right. Uh, but
The cool thing is
Mhm.
those rules are kind of expanded and detailed in the omnibus book,
Mhm.
so we can actually
Yes.
definitely bring that out at
Yeah.
some point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was is this book here? So this is like the rebooted world. Um, so um,
Yeah.
so actually in the omnibus it actually like it says there are different rules for different official worlds, right? There's the normal modern world, then there's the Sengoku Jidai world, and then there's the rebooted
Mhm.
world as its own sort of category in the omnibus. Um, yeah, the rebooted world it's a little bit more co-op focused, uh, because
Mhm.
there are a bunch of these Yoma running around that even the Oni don't like. So it gives you a common enemy in case you wanted to have a reason to put them into your scenarios. So it's more explicitly co-op than normal Shinobi.
Yeah, I can imagine because at that point you're hunting down like basically, the Incredible Hulk who just happens to also have like ninja powers.
Right, exactly. Yes. Um, so that's out there. Um,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. No, then there's the Heian Arrow book. Just
Mhm.
there's so much out there. Um,
Which again is mostly, yeah, and that's mostly a focus of just again focusing on a replay with just a few extra rules in that. Hand era is
mhm,
wonderful, but it's just so hard to get into, like even more so than others that it would just, yeah. What we're hoping to do is open it up to get other people, like if they wanted to write their own replays um, with their own cool setting hacks,
mhm,
that they'd be able to do that
yes.
uh, with complete freedom.
Mhm,
Yeah. So rather than being so tied to the original Japanese material, we can see new material appear in English. And then because of a license agreement we have with Boken, is that if we end up producing it, like say for example, someone's like, I want to write this, this replay slash rule supplement that takes it and does it like a one of the things we're working on is like a kind of like a Wild West sort of futuristic hack. But say someone came along and wanted to do something like that. Like I got this idea where the clans are actually blah blah blah, and it's this kind of setting. I'm like that's great, and then we'd be able to basically like take that if we publish it, then give it back to Boken, and they can publish it in Japanese too,
mhm,
because we'd be sure that the fans, if there's enough fans for it in English, there's going to be very interested people in Japan too
mhm.
that might be playing these things.
Right, so Chaos Modifiers asks one question, and then after that, I think I have to go. But he asks, "What is the most
Okay.
bonkers game of Shinobigami you have seen or been a part of?" I think I have two answers to that. Can you think of one, Andy? Most bonkers
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, it wasn't in terms of setting or anything. It was actually in terms of like player focus, and I think I described it online at some point or during a previous interview. But I'll tell the story here again. So one of my friends, Eric, is awesome at like extrapolating rules, like seeing a game and then like understanding how rules are going to affect each other, and he can sort of like play test a game in his head without play testing it. Call him the rules whisperer. He loves these social games just as much as us. He's not like a complete, like he's not locked into games with special abilities and stuff like that. But he just happens to read ahead a lot. And so basically, I ran Shinobigami for him once or twice, and he said, "Aha! I figured out Shinobigami." And we're like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yes, I know how to win Shinobigami every time." And I'm like, "That's a pretty bold statement." He's like, "Yep." And he was like, but I did it. I'm like, all right, okay, we'll see. Um, and what we realized, so what happened was basically he I didn't even put like we did another session about a month later. I did not put the screws to him or anything. I basically just set up as another frenemy level Shinobigami scenario, and gave everyone just normal secrets, nothing weird. Like not everyone was like had a secret that says kill Eric or anything like that. It was just basically a normal game. Um, but with a prize in the middle. I forget even what the secret I gave him was. It was maybe something cooperative or something like that. And what he did was he basically, like, knowing the new name of the game, he picked a couple nimpo that were very powerful for combat, and what he did was he picked for his nimpo skills, his skill list. He picked things in the far corners, left one, the bottom left one, which was digging, the bottom right one, and then like one in the middle or something like that. And he's like, basically, what his idea was is he's going to walk and basically can challenge anyone and fight them, and as long as he goes first, as long as he gets the initiative and goes early, he's going to fight them with these abilities that no one else is going to have on their grid. So, like in the top corners, like they're going to be the people. Most people like not, they don't congregate in the middle, but they have things scattered around. But he'll poke at you with this one, and if you have a skill net, it's, oh, that person's got a skill net there. Well, I'm going to try fighting with digging then next. So he would like basically did that so that he would be able to attack you in ways that you couldn't defend against. So he would be able to overpower you in combat. Great idea on paper, and in practice, what happened was he ended up like basically fighting against everyone, grabbing the MacGuffin, getting towards the end, and then like um, uh, and grabbing the MacGuffin early on and keeping it, which is a good thing to do in the game, and then getting to the last battle and ended up getting whacked, not because everyone was teaming up on him or anything like that. There was no NPC, or excuse me, there was another NPC boss, but they quickly defeated that person, and then they turned on each other as people want to do, and he got whittled down and lost the thing. He was like kind of like he realized what happened, which is basically this, is that he focused everything on the rules and not the relationships, and didn't and completely forgot the whole, like, part of those reality TV shows, like the Survivors and stuff like that, is you're not always like just completely antagonistic against each other. You have to work with the people, even if you're completely enemies. You have to like give advantage and have that relationships with each other. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything you want. And basically, he made such a beeline towards the goal, towards the prize thing, that he didn't look at anyone else's secrets, except for like maybe one. Later on, it was revealed that the person he was like stabbing to get the trinket was like on their side. He like basically rolled over. It came out to be like there were two other people that were effectively on his side, and three other people that were like either neutral or against him. It was kind of like one of those sort of like there was roughly two sides, and they were eventually he basically stabbed the only people on his side, so his whole kind of quote team was weakened by the end, and he didn't realize that until all the secrets were revealed, and was like, really, oh, but I was stabbing you the whole time. The person's like, I know you were stabbing me, I couldn't tell you though, it's my secret. He's like, then he looked at like the people, and the only people that were left on the battlefield when the quote unquote friends were all his enemies, and they were quickly just like, yeah, but they batted him, and he lost his thing. So yeah, so it's not like he was looking at it like a German board game, even though he's really smart, and we actually, our favorite board game was Spartacus, which has these weird power effects, but there's so much social stuff going on, so much give and take going on, that the cards and the pieces don't define what's going on. It's the give and take relationships with the others. There's a balance between the two. It's not 100% one and not 100% the other, and those two balance things come in. And so anyway, when I watched that play out, that was the most bonkers thing that happened, because I absolutely did not set him up to fail at all. Just to say, okay, let's run this experiment. But just watching him, like, I had to do the Gendo pose so that I would hide my laughing on the inside when I'm seeing him stabbing his quote unquote friends to get the thing. Yeah. So that was the most bonkers thing I saw. How about you, Matt?
So way back when I was still living in Japan, like I mentioned, like the whole Christmas thing, I invited my friends to play with me, and knowing that friends are flaky, I invited 8 of my friends to play Shinobigami. No, I figured at least 2, probably half of them were gonna flake. Um, and so I made a 6-player game. I think, yeah, I made a 6-player game with 2 additional optional PCs in case all 8 people play or whatever. So come the date of the game, I went down to San Diego to play with my friends, um, and I get set up, and it turns out only 2 people showed up out of the 8. I was like, okay, fine.
I thought the opposite was going to happen. I thought it would be like 10 people.
So
2 people, okay.
So I had 2 PCs, but because I had written the game for 6 players, I had to play 4 different PC NPCs each with their own secrets and missions. And so I was like juggling 4 PCs at once, and it was a nightmare. And it was fun because we all had stands, and it was basically a JoJo thing, and it was fun. But that was crazy. But then the next year, I tried it again. I was like, okay, 8 people, surely, the same thing's gonna happen. Whatever. Uh, except the second time I tried it, all 8 people showed up, and so we
Oh
had
wow.
we had an 8-player Shinobigami game, and that was insane in its own right. It took like 8 hours, and I will never do that again. Uh, 8 players is too many. 6 people is
Yes.
maximum. Even six
Max. Yeah.
players.
Especially if you have to teach the rules. Yeah.
I recently did a 6-player game within 4 hours. With almost all new players, so it's possible. But that was
Mm.
bonkers. But one other time, I had a great game, and it was bonkers just because it was taking place on Gunkanjima/Dejima, where within the
Oh
game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Dejima in the game is different than like its historical counterpart, in which basically Dejima is like this mystical.
Ichima's the city of it's Nagasaki, right? Or
Uh,
it's in Nagasaki or at
yeah,
near Nagasaki.
yeah. Uh, so like Dejima is, as I recall, in the setting, it's like this weird island where like the fabric between this world and the next is real thin. So I sort of just mashed that together with Gunkanjima, which I have a fascination with. So on a player's turn, they would roll a die to see if the island they were on is floating between Gunkanjima or Dejima, and depending on how they rolled, then they would roll on the scene chart for the one that they rolled. So the players were floating between Gunkanjima and Dejima, but also like my kids who were like 1 or 2 at the time, they were NPCs, but
Mhm.
like future versions of themselves, and like they were like trying to like kill each other, and so like the PCs were like taking sides. um and then it turned out that they had to like help the 2 brothers work together or something like that. But it was sort of mechanically complex, but it actually worked out really well. So I was really happy with the way that turned out. It was kind of bonkers.
Nice, nice. That's really cool. I
But
know the second book kind of puts some emphasis at the very back. Like it gives you a couple of sample. Like in the first book, it says, "Here's the scene chart. You can make your own scene charts if you want."
mhm,
The second book actually contains like 2 or 3 sample ones.
yes,
Um, yeah, which is kind of cool. Like if you want to play a school fake focus one, there's a school one, and then it gives you more insight and advice if you want to make your own. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Scene
when you
charts.
start doing that, things become really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a big thing. Yeah, scene charts are actually really important. Um, as it turns out, the basic one that you get, it's very basic, and it's sort of broad. The first time you play, it's very helpful, but then after that, you sort of want um something a bit more specific, and yeah, the second book has uh
Yeah.
yeah. So I
I will
think.
say that even in my own sessions, I've used it. I use it about half the time, honestly.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I put it out there,
Mhm.
but then sometimes we end up walking away from it, especially if I'm playing
Mm,
with a lot of people who are very savvy with role playing,
I see.
and the next scene is very evident.
Right.
Like if they're like if someone's like, oh, I absolutely know what I want to go for the next scene, they're like raising their hand, like,
Hmm.
oh, please call me sensei. I'm like, all right, well, and then they have exactly what they want to have done.
Right.
Maybe we can pull on the scene chart to see, like, maybe give it a little bit example. But if it's at the time we're like, wait, who wants to go next?
Hmm.
And like everyone's kind of like, I've got an idea, but I'm not quite sure. Then that's when I pull out the scene. When we definitely use the scene chart, sure, because that as Risterma says, that is definitely a mood setter.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's all the time that I have.
Yep. Well, I know. Yeah, we're about out for time. Thank you all 15 to 20 of you for participating. It's been nice to have an audience. Um, it's been keeping a fire under our butt to keep working for you guys. Not for us, but for you. And yeah, please stick around. We're going to be, we're only a few months away from the release of the second book and the limited edition book. Um, and once that comes off, basically chains come off the beast, and
Mhm.
we start really digging in, not only producing stuff that we've been producing, or at least finishing up the stuff that we've been working on, but also getting others to come in and the people we've earlier recruited to finish up their works, so we can start really getting some product out. Not that having more toys is the ultimate goal here, but this is stuff that we thought that was really cool way back when. Our opinions have not changed on that subject. It was just a matter of time and getting over the COVID chills, etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, all
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, when that happens, yeah, the streaming will commence. I will be doing more pushing for online gaming. Might even start going to conventions again to push it. I don't know. We'll see. Uh,
Yep.
but in the meantime, you can find us, particularly me. I'm on the Discord all the time, so hop
Mhm.
over to the Discord. If you want to come say hi or chat or whatever, we do a lot of talking about JRPGs in general. We have quite a few people that are doing their own translations of stuff. So just come by, say hi. We've got
Yep.
Twitter, and yeah,
Yeah, that's it. Yep, as Yukamichi says, yeah,
that's what
otsukare
this. So, yeah, Kawashima Sensei, thank you very much for joining us. Um,
Yep.
uh,
And yeah, we're looking to produce Boken's works as quickly and bring as much honor to your company as possible. I'll speak on that. All right.
okay, doke.
All
Well,
right.
thanks,
That's all
guys.
from us.
It was fun.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Cutting out.
Bye.
See ya.